Hi, I'm Donna Bachman, production manager at the Children's Theater Company of Minneapolis. One of the things I do is work with the people who create the scenery, props, and costumes. Almost everyone gets to see a play, but not everyone gets to go behind the scenes.
Hey, who turned out the light? It's dark in here. Here I am on stage. Have you ever wondered how an actor or a piece of scenery can suddenly appear on stage in a matter of seconds? Sometimes they use a trapdoor. The theater creates an imaginary world on stage to tell a story. An actor has to use set pieces to make it seem real, like this. Whoa, I'm getting seasick. Check this out. During a show, all kinds of people work these ropes to change the backdrops and scrims and lower the curtain. And that's the stage. This is the scene shop. There's a lot going on in here, but it all begins with the model of the set and the blueprint. The scene shop is so huge and filled with so much lumber, paint, nails, hammers, saws, and other powerful tools.
Follow with this one then, guys, and put this in front here. And down and...
It looks to me like they could build a whole house in here. In fact, sometimes they do. Isn't the scene shop great? I'm having a lot of fun. You go ahead. I'll catch up with you later. This is a prop, and this is the prop shop. Lots of stage magic is created here. They work with all kinds of tools and materials in the prop shop. Some props are big and colorful, so even people up in the balcony can see them on stage. And other props are small enough for actors to put in their pockets. To make props, you need carpentry skills and creativity to turn sketches into three-dimensional objects. That was great! Let's see some more! Guess what this is? The costume shop. Let's take a look. This place looks like a fabric store. It takes a lot of people to make a costume.
So Mary will paint it, and I will paint the glue on there, and then I'll put it together and make a braid, a French braid. It's a French braid.
Sometimes pieces have to be hand-stitched. And a little fabric paint can totally change how a costume looks. That was fun. Come on, there's more to see.
I'm Dan Culhane. I'm the technical director for the Children's Theater Company. I pretty much am in charge of all the scenic elements at the Children's Theater, which includes the mechanics. If we have to fly people, I figure out how to fly people. If they're on winches, I have to figure out those. If we're taking mechanical things across a stage. I figure those out, how they work, how they operate, and then I have a shop that builds them for me, and I also have painters who paint them for me. An important part is when you give a prop or a piece of scenery or a little mechanical effect to an actor, that it works the first time that they touch it and works consistently all the way through. Otherwise, they're working with this product and they don't really feel safe and secure in using that product, because if it doesn't work all the time, always in the back of their mind, they're sitting there thinking, boy, what am I going to do if this doesn't work? The designer actually shows you what the front looks like, but it doesn't tell you what it's made out of or what it's built like behind and what it has to support and what tricks it has to do. So that happens drafting, and I feed the draftings down to the shop, and the shop guys build it, and after it's built, we have a painter that paints it, and after we're all done with that, we start loading it. We use styrofoam, you know, the little styrofoam that your little coffee cups are made out of, or that your mom and dad's coffee cups are made out of. Only we get it in big blocks. We can get it in blocks that are 4 feet wide by 8 feet long by 2.5 feet thick. And it's just solid styrofoam. And from there we can carve it, we can cut it, we can shape it, we can sand it to make it look like clouds, make it look like piles of snow, make it look like anything. It's kind of a fitting out period. It's kind of like going into a shoe store and trying on a pair of shoes before you buy it, in that you always put them on, you walk around. Well, the actors do the same thing. They kind of get on the set and they kind of walk around, and actually they run through the play a couple of times just to get them used to what the scenery is and how it acts and how it reacts and how it moves.
My name is Jim Nordquist. I'm the prop master at Children's Theater. I organize the prop shop according to the needs of the show that we're building. I organize the time and the material needs of props. I need to stay within a budget and at the same time create the amount of props that. If you think of your house as with the walls and the roof and the floor as scenery and the doors as scenery, the rest would be props or the properties of the director has an input on what he or she wants that prop to do and how it's used. The designer is will tell us how it should look. I like the blend of both the art and the practical. I love to build things. I love to figure out how things will work, how a puppet will move. And beyond that, or also including that, I like the art, how it looks and how it's used. The props that we build are whimsical, or they're fantastical. They're taken out of a storybook. We build them to look like the story. It's very few other theaters will do.
My name is Risha Burturk, and I'm the costume director at the Children's Theater Company. The overview of being the costume director is being ultimately responsible for getting all of the costumes and costume pieces on stage when they're wanted for each production, and also to the designer's specifications as closely as we can. I have a staff of about 15 people, which includes people who actually make the patterns and people who stitch costumes together, someone who can dye fabric and make new costumes look like old costumes after they're made, someone who can make wigs, another person who makes hats. We have a mask maker because we do a lot of shows where we want to change either how a person's face looks or make them into something else completely. usually you take into account the character of each person in the script, and you want to costume that person so the audience recognizes their character not just by what they're saying or doing, but by what they're wearing. There are two basic ways to change a body shape, one of which is by padding the actor out from the body, the other of which is to make a pod. We call them pods because they're kind of like a shell that goes around the body and there's airspace in between. It can be remarkably rewarding to work on a set of costumes and see them come to life on stage.
I'm Charles Cron. I am the lighting and video coordinator for the Children's Theater. The biggest talent you need is to be always an observer of light, shadows, colors, and the environment and surroundings all around you, and learn how to recreate those looks and feelings. My style comes a lot from the color choices that I use. I like strong, bold color that emphasizes the dramatic action or dramatic mood of the. For the show Amazing Grace, I lit the theater walls with city windows. And when those city windows climb up on the wall, suddenly the entire audience was thrust into a city. And the kids just go crazy, like, oh, we're in Chicago, we're in New York. And it was really a great moment for me to have them so excited about a little lighting. You don't create art on your own. You're in a team, and you're a piece of the art. But if you can't communicate your idea with the director and the other designers, you can't communicate it to the audience. It's great to work in the theater. Your life and job changes on a weekly, daily, or monthly basis. You explore a new world every month, every year, and there's nothing like that. If you want to work and enjoy yourself and never grow up, just stay in the
My name is Reed Reza. I'm the Master Sound Technician for the Children's Theater. We use a lot of computer-based equipment such as digital audio tape machines. Also we use computers for editing sound effects and music, and we also use the old-fashioned reel-to-reel tape machine. My favorite way is to record sound effects rather than using them out of a library. If you use the same dog bark over and over again, you can get kind of tired of it. It's a lot more interesting to go out and find the sounds yourself and try and get a good recording of them. I was doing the dishes once, and I got so involved with the sound of the water hitting different objects in the sink, filling bowls or glasses, that I would fill up different objects and hit them and squish the water around in them to make different sounds and listen to the effect that it. I think most people aren't consciously aware of sound, which is probably the way it should be. Good sound shouldn't detract from the action that's happening on stage. As an experiment, the next time you're watching television, you may want to try turning the sound down to see what effect that has on the person. East of the Sun and West of the Moon is probably the largest sound design I've done yet. It was close to 100 sound effects, and they weren't real standard things like crickets or birds, but things that had to be built. Never stop learning. Get as much experience as you can in theater and music and radio and television, and also the ability to listen both to sounds themselves and to other people you're working with.
My name is Victor Zupank. I am the music director at the Children's Theater. I compose some of the scores. If I'm not composing the score, I'm conducting the orchestra in the pit if someone else has composed the score. I hire the musicians. I orchestrate scores. I play the piano in rehearsal. As we're working on rehearsals, I'm usually just improvising on the piano, making up things. And I usually have a little tape recorder that you know, when we're about to work on a scene, I'll just turn that on and let it play, let it record as I'm improvising and making up things. So it's very It's very intuitive. So if I'm conducting and I'm in the pit and you're on the stage, you are able to see me because I need to cue people and conduct, and you know, if people are holding a long chord, I need to cut them off, you know, and a lot of times if people are singing, are about to sing and they need to come in with the orchestra, I need to cue the orchestra and the singer. We have a really great facility to bring musicians in to the studio and then record all the music, which then we bring down to the rehearsals and we play those tapes in the performance. Pick an instrument you really like and have fun with it. You know, enjoy doing it and make up your own tunes and get together and play with other.
My name is Gary Gisselman, and I'm a director for the Children's Theater Company in Minneapolis. We used to put up a chenille bedspread on the clothesline in the backyard and put on plays about our family, and we'd all become other people in our family and would have great fun doing that. And of course, I'm sure we're absolutely wicked about the adults that we were making fun of or that we were portraying, but we all have that ability to imagine ourselves as someone else. The best technique for developing character is to observe. You can observe by going out and sitting at the airport and just watching people, or going to the mall and watching people. That's certainly one way to observe, and it's a great way to observe. What you're doing most of the time in a rehearsal is you're solving problems. So you're trying to figure out, why do people act in a certain situation? Why would they act the way that the playwright who has written the play or the novelist who has written the book, why would they have them act that way? And so you try and figure that out so that you can act that way. I like to be supportive and I like to be helpful to them because I know how much that meant to me. And just the ability that you gain by knowing that someone believes that you can do something and tries to express that to you, I think is very helpful. And having that kind of confidence is good. At the end of the show, Tom and Huck both jumped into the orchestra pit. They swung out on ropes over crash pads, which are pads that you can land on without hurting yourself, and once you've learned how to do it. And then we heard the splash sound, but we also wanted water to come out. So Dan figured out how this could be done. Well, the first time we did it, the water indeed shot out of the pit, but it also went on to about the first 15 rows of the audience. So the audience got immersed in water the first few times we did it. I always think that the very best actors and directors and people that work in the theater come from being very good students. Not necessarily A students, I don't mean necessarily by a grade, but that are interested in a lot of.
My name is Tree O'Halloran, and I'm a stage manager at the Children's Theater Company. I am responsible for, in performance, cueing the lights, the sound. So when there's a sound effect to go or a light change to happen, are all cued by the stage manager simply by saying stand by lights and lights go. And that's when the operators will take their cues. Also with scene shifts as well, we use what we call little lights to cue people backstage, cue lights. And by having one person who can see it all happen, we can coordinate the lights and the scenery and the sound all to happen at the appropriate time. What I love about it, one, is that you see the entire creative process, and two, that you deal with everybody at the theater, from the actors to the ushers to the maintenance staff to the marketing department, and you have an overview that very few other jobs at the theater. The art of my job is to create an environment for artists. That meaning directors, actors, designers, and artisans, people in the shop. I also love to do the project, to work on something intensely, and then it's over and we start on another one. That's kind of a great thing too, in that cycle of beginning again. And we talk about theater as the live experience. It's never the same night to night, and when it's closed, it's gone. We use a phrase about being in the moment on stage, and that means that you know what comes next and you're always prepared for your next line, but if anything happens in the moment, you're in character enough that you would deal with it the way your character on stage might deal with it.
My name is John Cranny. I'm the executive producer of the Children's Theater Company. There isn't a time that I wasn't interested in some kind of putting on shows. Even when I was a little kid, I was always organizing circuses and parades and so forth. And so when I got into school, I was always interested in the pageants and the school plays and so forth. And by the time I got into junior high school and high school, I was very, very interested in being an actor. The play begins and you're taken somewhere, and sometimes you're taken to especially in children's theater, to very fantastical, unreal worlds that don't exist anywhere. And you go along with the story and you have an adventure, you follow along with the plot, you identify with the characters, and this experience happens and you share in it, and then of course at the end you're left back in your seat and you can take this experience home. We take them through an audition process which allows us to see how they move and how they talk and what kind of confidence they have and so forth. And usually they have to come back 2 or 3 times before we finally get to the final selection. The people who come to our theater are people who want an experience with their children that they feel will be of quality and will be something that will enrich their lives. And so they give me the opportunity to be able to participate in that. I think about the experience not as just what happens in 2 hours on our stage, but as a whole process that begins maybe even weeks or months before when the decision is made that the family's going to come, and the whole sense of preparation that happens in the family talking about it, and then getting ready that day, and coming to a very impressive place like our theater is. If you came down and you watched every performance of a play over its run, you would see many different things, because the audience affects what's going on. Each time you do it, it changes little ways and subtle ways and so forth. But mostly the audience affects what goes on. The whole idea about doing theater is, you take something that's very complicated and takes a tremendous amount of work and make it look effortless.
Actor. An actor is a person who portrays a character in a play.